All right, our cluster k3s cluster is up and running. Let's try to inspect the cluster and try to understand what are all the options that is by default enabled and how many resources are created by this cluster by default. Right, so the first command I want to execute kubectl cluster info to check the cluster information. As you can see, Kubernetes master is up and running and CoreDNS is also up and running. So this is the address you can see, and metric server is also installed by default. So that means we can able to get the metrics of your nodes and metrics of your pods. Let's try to check that kubectl top nodes. So this particular command will give you the statistics of CPU and memory. So of your nodes. So how much CPU percentage it is utilizing and what is the memory percentage it is utilizing. And if you execute kubectl top pods -n kube system, so here you can see the utilization part of your pods inside the kube system in terms of CPU and memory. Let's execute kubectl get cs shortcut for component statuses. Here you can check the status of your controller manager and the scheduler as well. So here the health is okay, right? So let's try to validate how many namespaces that it is created by default. Kubectl get ns. So here you can see the default namespace, kube system, kube public, and kube node list namespaces. So if you check kubectl get all -n kube system. So this particular command will give you the resources inside the kube system namespace. Here you can see the metric pod is there and local path provisioner. That means local path storage class is also by default it is coming, and traffic is the ingress controller that is by default coming, and CoreDNS and service LB and Helm is also by default installed. And these are all the service information, kubedns, metric server, and traffic Prometheus also is enabled. And the deployments and the replica sets and the jobs. All right, so if you check kubectl get storage class, so by default this local path storage is enabled, and with this you can able to create the dynamic PV and PVC, stands for persistent volume and persistent volume claim. Right, so and also we have to inspect the path /var lib, and rancher is the home directory for this k3s cluster. So if you execute ls, here you can see the k3s folder is there, and if you go inside the server, here you can see a couple of folders are there. So we have just used the token to join the other worker nodes to the master, and if you inspect tls folder, so here you can see all the certificates that are required to communicate each component with each other. So the CA certificate and all other component certificates, it will store over here at this location. And the static pod path is, this is the location manifest. If you go to the manifest, here you can see the static pods information. So the metric server information and role bindings and the traffic and the local storage and the CoreDNS and all stuff like that, right? So if you go back to one more location, and if you notice the CRED location is there, and this is the configuration file location for all other pods like scheduler, right? So and controller and API server configuration and admin configuration as well. So if you go to cd/etc and rancher, here you can see k3s folder is there at the configuration location. If you go inside, one file will be there, k3s.yml. So if I just cat it, here you can see this is the kube config file for us. With this file only, so we can able to communicate with the Kubernetes API server. All right. And also we can inspect the API server over the browser. So if you cat this k3s.yml file, here you can see one username and password will be there. Let's go back to the browser and paste the IP of your master node, the public IP, and then colon, the port number is 6443. So I have just connected to this, so that's the reason it didn't ask for the password. So if you are connecting for the initial time, so you have to provide this is the username, admin is the username, and the password is this one. If you enter those details, it will give you this list of APIs that are available inside the Kubernetes API server. So if I go to /API, so this is the API information here you can see. And if I go to API/v1 is the API, and here you can see all the resources, right? So if I want to check the pods information /pods, so these are all the pods that are available inside our Kubernetes cluster. So this is the metric server pod, and this is the information about it, and this is the local path provisioner, and this is the information of it. And if you go below, so whatever the pods that are available inside the Kubernetes cluster, you can see over here, and then traffic. All right, so if I list daemon sets, spelling mistake, I guess. I think it's not available inside this API. And if you go to the main page, here you can see API/apps is there. Let's try to browse it. Right, so this is how you can get the APIs information inside your Kubernetes cluster. So if I go to /metrics, so we can get all the metrics that are available for this Kubernetes cluster.